You, my friend, are in for a treat. I am joined today by a client of mine, Valerie McDonnell. We're going to talk about launching a podcast. We're going to talk about working with a podcast production team. It's going to be a good one. Let's get into it. Welcome to the More Profitable Podcast with Stacey Harris. I'm Stacey, and this is the spot to learn more about the strategies, tactics, and tools you need to build your more profitable podcast. My team and I work every day with podcasters like you to shift shows from frustrating time sucks to productive members of your sales team, because your show should be built to generate and convert leads. So let's get into it. This is going to be so much fun. I'm stoked to introduce you to Valerie. Before we jump into it, let me give you a quick rundown of who Valerie is. So Valerie McDonnell is a licensed therapist, sex and relationship specialist, and host of the Rise to Intimacy podcast. With over a decade of clinical experience, she specializes in trauma-informed sex therapy and couples work, helping individuals and couples navigate sexual desire challenges, intimacy disconnection, attachment injuries, performance anxiety, and the lasting effects of trauma on relationships. Valerie founded her Richmond, Virginia-based practice in 2019 and now works with clients nationally through her clinical work, intensive programs, and professional trainings. Her approach is evidence-based, deeply relational, and built around one core belief: that real intimacy begins with safety. I have had such a great time working on the Rise to Intimacy podcast. To give you an idea before we jump into our conversation, I actually worked with Valerie in our Launch Accelerator container. So we have been working on this show together since before day one, from its very inception. And we've had such a good time bringing this show to life. Once she worked with us in the Launch Accelerator, she rolled into ongoing production. So you can go check out her show, the Rise to Intimacy podcast. There is a link in the show notes, or you can search any podcast platform and you'll find it. And I highly recommend it. It is a fantastic show. You'll hear me rave about it in the interview even. But let's stop lollygagging and let's get into it with Valerie. All right. Hi, Valerie. Thanks for joining me.
Hey, Stacey. Thanks for having me.
I'm super excited. Before we jump into the conversation that I'm excited about, I suppose we should take a moment. Why don't you introduce yourself and let the listener know a little bit about, I always say your podcast here because that's the part I care about, but your business as a whole, because obviously the two are tied together because we work together.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, so I'm Valerie McDonnell. I'm a licensed clinical social worker, specialize in sex and couples therapy. So I get a lot of couples that come to see me. Maybe they've done some work with another therapist, but they didn't really get the part about talking about their physical and emotional intimacy. And so I specialize in that. I use a trauma-informed approach, and I am very heavy on working on the central nervous system. And so I pull in a lot of neuroscience and talk a lot about emotional regulation, which I believe to be really the one relationship skill we don't learn enough about, and is probably one of the most important ones that we all could benefit from learning more about.
I want to say I love your show because of the emotional regulation piece. I think that you've done such a good job. I mean, we're still early in the show, obviously, but you've done such a good job of, I hate to use the word normalizing, but kind of normalizing the fact that this term that is a little bit on the internet becoming but therapy speak and buzzwordy,
Yeah.
and giving it real context to how it's showing up in your relationship,
Yeah.
or the lack of it showing up in your relationship and your communication in a way that's not shamey. Because I feel like so often when people talk about it, especially in the context of relationships, it can end up feeling a little shamey, well, you're not doing this, what do you expect?
Oh, yes.
And you really sort of meet people where you are and be like, hey, this thing you're experiencing that you maybe don't love could be tied to this thing over here. Here's an actionable tool we can use to make this better, instead of being like, well, why haven't you figured out how to do this yet?
Yeah. I mean, I think a lot of therapists are talking about, how to improve communication, but the missing piece, even for me, like in my past relationships, was if you are consistently getting triggered, or let's just say even upset, and then you go into this place of like shutting down or escalating, yelling, talking very fast, that in itself just disrupts being able to have logical conversation that will lead into resolving it versus just sweeping it under the carpet or just going into kind of blaming yourself or others. And so, if you can learn that emotional regulation piece, it significantly improves conversation, communication, and then you don't go into resentment so easily. You can actually, again, respond from your logical brain versus like our primal brain.
And I love that, my next question to you is gonna be like, what made you want to start a podcast? Because you work in a pretty, I mean, I guess 1 to 2 or 1 to a few kind of way, not necessarily 1 to 1. But you work in a pretty direct 1 to 1 kind of, couple to therapist way. What made you want to start a podcast? And I almost wonder if some of it is tied into this conversation of like, we can actually get a lot further if you already understand that we need to be paying attention to this emotional
Yes.
regulation piece
Yeah.
instead of having to spend the first 6 sessions being like, no, really, if we could just regulate your nervous system, your lives will change.
Yes.
So is that a component? What did make you want to start the podcast?
Yeah, definitely that, where you're absolutely right. I could spend many, many sessions just talking and trying to educate around emotional regulation. Some people, are like have never heard of that language, which makes sense. I never heard about it until I, started doing a lot more research on it and getting my education in psychology and social work. So even with my education in that, it took me a while to really be clued into it. But I'm a big research geek, so I'm kind of consistently like reading. And one of the big ways I do learn is from various podcasts. So I really enjoy listening to podcasts. That's another reason why I thought I would give it a try. And another big thing is like educating on how like therapy is not a quick fix. I need to actually do some more episodes on this. Like many people, if you're coming to see me, it's actually very common to come see me when you're like 10 years or more into repeating the same cycle of behaviors, the same problem, the same argument. And then it's like, oof, when I hear that, I'm like, we can do some work on this, but it's not gonna, that work is, you're probably not gonna meet your goals in a 3 month period. It's gonna take, 6 months or more. And that's like consistent work and also educating on the work doesn't just happen in the therapy room. You really need to be doing work outside of the therapy room, just like any other new skill you would be learning. So those are some of my goals with the podcast is providing that type of education and a lot of the education on neuroscience so people can better understand what it truly means to regulate or therefore calm our nervous system down before we're engaging in like these heavy topics with our partner.
One of the things I really love about a podcast for the space you're in, and I don't mean therapy necessarily, but in these sort of like high touch, emotionally charged services, because there are lots of them, right? Where like there is going to be work that has to happen, not in the room. I even say this like in the work I do, right? Like a lot of the work that comes from our work is not when we're on the phone.
Yes, that's right.
It's you on your own in your living room talking or wherever, right? And so, I one of the things I love about a podcast is we talk a lot about podcasts as a sales tool. We talk a lot about podcasts as a way to nurture a new lead, but they're also a really, really valuable retention tool,
Yeah,
right?
yeah,
They help our clients and our customers stay connected with us, stay connected with that work, stay connected, keep these things top of mind. And also, I got to tell you, I always love when I get on calls with clients. Like, I have clients who I have been producing their show for 5+ years.
wow.
We've done literally hundreds of episodes
No.
together, and we'll get on a quarterly production call, and they'll be like, I was listening to the podcast last week, and you said this thing. How should I be doing that? What does that look like? And sometimes I'll be like, you already do that. That was like a back end production thing. I do that. You already do this. And sometimes it'll be like a recording thing, right? Like,
Yeah.
I've been scripting for 2 years and it's driving me crazy. And you were talking about how you don't script, you use bullet points. Like, what could that look like for me? And we'll talk through that. But it really can be a valuable tool, again, especially where there is specialty information like you have, right? Like where there is access to this research that like Joe and Jane Smo are not
Yeah.
Googling at 2 a.m. neuroscience information.
Right. That is so true.
That's unique to you.
Yeah, I've been actually very pleased that like multiple clients of mine, when I've been having sessions recently, have said, I was listening to your podcast and you said, X, Y, and Z, just kind of like you're saying. I'm like, oh, wow, that's exciting. But it's like
It
you're
is always
saying,
so fun.
yeah, they're quoting back to me something I said that, it might be brand new information to them, or maybe they've just heard it a little bit differently, but they also would be like, I heard you say this, and then we'll have a conversation about it. So that's been flattering and pretty exciting for me already. Yeah.
Well, and I think probably in your situation especially, it gives them some time to sit with an idea
Yeah. That,
before they come and talk to you, right? It gives them some idea, especially because you're often like explaining it with some context, obviously, in the show. It gives them some time to really sit with it so that when they do come to see you and to say that to you and they have the conversation with you, it's a much more meaningful conversation. Because again, you've done some of that upfront ed, right? We've given them the 101 course on the podcast around sort of we've laid the groundwork for a much more productive conversation. I love that. So when you were sitting down to launch the show or get started with the show. And I ask this because it is a question I get asked a lot around like when I'm doing my first season, should I DIY it or is it worth investing in? And honestly, I think it depends. I don't think there's a right answer for everybody. I do think that the podcast Launch Accelerator is great. And I hope you do too. Otherwise, this podcast is about to take a turn. Um, but what made you start with support versus DIYing? Because we started, just to give the listener some context, we started strategy only, and then we expanded to like full production of your first season. We started working together in the podcast Launch Accelerator, and now you're a full ongoing production client. But what made you start even with just a strategy support versus just being like, I can do this?
well, I mean, probably mostly that while I enjoy listening to podcasts, I had no idea how it would actually be produced. I had no idea, like, once it is produced, how does it get on the various platforms? How do I, help people become aware of it? And I do truly believe in investing in, experts in any field. If I'm not an expert, which not an expert in much except for exactly what I do for my job. But I
Same.
believe in I believe in that, and also because I do have, as a business owner, like I own my private practice. I'm the only person in my practice. So up until probably this last year, I was doing most everything by myself, and trying to do that and also have 3 kids and also trying to have a little bit of semblance of a social life. There's just only so much I can do. And so there's some things I feel very comfortable doing in terms of myself and my business. And this was just not one of them. And also, like I learned about you, and actually I watched a video you had done, on or another mutual podcast that you produce. And that helped me like see you and your personality and hear you give some expertise before I even listened to your podcast. So actually, after I watched that, then I went to your podcast and started binging your podcast. And it really helped me feel very comfortable with like putting all this onto your plate, which I appreciate so much.
To
um,
be fair, I share it with other people. I share my plate with other people. That helps.
Yes, right. That's right. So you have a team, which is great. And so that I just felt like this is something I don't have awareness of. It's just something that I really enjoy and I'm hoping to do for my business to expand my reach. And I just felt like I had no idea where to go with it if I were to try to DIY it. So it's been very helpful for me to just be able to record, hand it off to you. And then, like, that's basically all I have to do, which is very nice.
I like it. It's interesting because I feel like we have seen in the Launch Accelerator the shows that go live are the shows that go full production.
Oh, yes. Yeah.
They are the shows that go beyond just the strategy, and I think that is the same thing we see when folks try to DIY, right? Like I've done a couple of launch accelerators now, and maybe we'll see if we can get them on the show too, with folks who are like, I've been trying to do this on my own
Yeah.
2 years,
Right.
3 years.
Yeah.
This has been on my like, this is the year I launch a podcast list
Yes.
for a while. And like I have taken the courses, and we have somebody who did the launch accelerator with me who did podcast summer camp first, which is like learning how to build your podcast plan and set your production cycle, and like really in a large part teaching you how to do large parts of my job in this program. And she was like, yeah, no, it's not going to happen. We're going to need you to just produce my first season.
Yeah.
Because to your point, we're all trying to be people in the world,
Yeah.
and we do have to leave some time for that.
Yeah.
But there's also like there's always 6 more things we could be doing. It's so funny at the end of every day. My husband goes, okay, did you get everything done today? And I go, yeah, I got everything done for today, and there's plenty more to do tomorrow.
Right.
Like it's just sort of the nature of maybe life, but certainly in a season when you're a person who is parenting and you're a person who owns a business,
Yeah.
especially as a service delivery person, because like you like there's a certain amount of my day that is just like client work and or face to face with clients,
Yeah.
and so having that marketing time sort of shrink and shrink and shrink as your business grows and grows and grows, it gets harder and harder to be somebody who DIYs. So I love that. In working with us, was there anything that surprised you about the process, maybe felt easier or harder than you expected it to be?
I think the easier part was just like hearing the final product. And like, even still now, as I'm sure you know, when you get my raw recordings, I'll be like in the middle of recording, then I'm like, oh, I didn't say that right. Let me start that over again. And I'll just like keep recording throughout all that. Or, I might cough or something happens in the background. And then I just kind of keep recording through it. And to hear like the final edited version, I'm always like, wow, that sounds amazing. There's not all this stuff in there. I do a lot of, my Southern slang of y'all. And it's like some of that's still in there. And that's great. Yeah.
It still should sound like you.
Always kind of second guess the y'all when I'm saying it, but it's true to me. So,
As a Southern California girl who was raised by Southern people, my grandparents are from Missouri and Louisiana. The y'all will always hold a very special place in my heart. I feel like it is the original non-gendered language. And I think that's hilarious that came out of the South. It's just, I'm just gonna put that out there. I just think it's funny.
Yes.
And I knew when all of the grandkids were in trouble when all y'all came out. Not just one of you, it's all y'all.
Yeah. That's right.
This is a collective hurt that is coming our way. But no, I intentionally choose to leave some of your y'alls in, because again, I want it, when we have a podcast where we are doing, same with my show, you'll hear me say stuff that is probably not super polished. You hear likes and so's and rights and all rights.
Yeah.
I had someone who I did YouTube videos. I had to hit the mic TV for a while. I don't know if anybody even remembers that, but for a couple of years I did YouTube sit videos, and I had an editor at the time who did a super cut of all the times I say all right, because that is my go-to transition word. I go, all right. And you'll still hear it in the show sometimes, because like, that's me talking.
Yeah. Yeah.
And like, we're
It is-
still people.
Yeah, I think it is good. It is good to have it, be more human. And also another wonderful thing was getting like the social media posts, which I don't know if I just wasn't paying attention to our meeting when we had it, but I was like, oh wow, that was like so amazing for me to see and very helpful, because I'm pretty terrible with social media. I have like a love-hate relationship with it. It's like another thing I have to do. And I like, when I do it, I'm like, okay, great. But it's like, it has to hit me in the moment. So to be able to have like some of that just shows up there, to be able to get the transcript and maybe to reference it if I'm doing a similar topic, to make sure I'm not too redundant and then I'm actually expanding on the education I'm giving, all that has been super helpful. And also the platform we use to communicate, and that you're very quick in responding, and it's like I know exactly who I'm talking to. That's another very easy thing, is even though I know you have a team, you're still my point of contact, and that's like so beneficial for me because I've had it go very differently when I've worked with other people on various marketing things for my company where it's like, I don't know if I'm talking to John, Jim, or, Susan, that's fine. So,
Yeah.
so all that's been great.
Selfishly, I do that because that drives me crazy when I hire somebody and I was like, wait, where's the person I've been talking to for like a month?
Right, yes, it makes a huge difference.
And why do I have to retell you all of these things?
I know, yes, that's so true. That is so true. Yes.
I don't know. Let's just ride. I love that. No, I really appreciate that. Thank you. It's important to me that we are building a space where it's easy to communicate with us, which is why we use monday.com for our podcast dashboards and our project management, because it allows us to communicate in there like about the episode that's happening. But also, like, clients always have my email address because, yeah, sometimes stuff comes up, especially because the way we structure, especially our ongoing production work, we're really only meeting once every 3 months. So
Mhm.
that's really all you need to talk to me. But like sometimes stuff comes up in the middle that doesn't need to be a meeting,
Right. Yep. Yep.
but does maybe need to be addressed right now or is going to make the next 6 weeks earlier. And sometimes from that call, it'll be like, awesome. Here's what we need to know now. And I'm also going to put this on our agenda for our next call and we'll dig into it more deeply. But I feel like being available
Yes.
is the bare minimum as a service provider to answer those questions. So I really appreciate that feedback because it is the thing that I obviously care about delivering a good product, but I want the work with our team and with me to be a pleasant experience as well. So that I love to hear that. So thank you. As we talk about your podcast, what as you wrapped up that first season on the process side of things, were there things where it was nice to have somebody to ask those questions to that maybe you didn't expect to come up? Be it tech, be it like what should I do? Even like a second set of ears to hear things because I know personally I'm not great at judging my own work. I tend to always think it's terrible. And so sometimes another set of ears is really helpful. Was there anything in that process that surprised you as being easier or more difficult when it got to the actual recording of it all?
Well, I definitely, well, we were very collaborative. I felt like at least on the recording my intro and outro and also picking the music. And that was super helpful. I had no idea like where to even start with that. So I felt like you gave
There's
me,
so many choices, it can be so overwhelming.
yes. And I didn't even know. I'm like, where do I even look for this? But you gave me, direction on all of that. Um, I was going back and forth with you some of like, I'm thinking this, but I don't know about this, and you would give me your feedback. So that was really awesome. I felt like the music we settled on, I feel very comfortable with
I
and
love
would
it.
enjoy. And I know, like it just randomly popped on my Spotify the other day where I had downloaded my own episode and to listen to later. And I was listening to a previous podcast and then it just went right into mine. And as soon as the music started, I was like, oh, it was like, I felt a little certain type of way where I was like, this is kind of nice. Oh, that's my
That's
music.
awesome. I love that. You know what? The music is nice to have somebody else on too, because as you learned in our conversation, it is weirdly vibe based.
Yeah.
Like as we're selecting, I'm like, I don't need to know exactly what you like, but I need to know feelings, vibes. Do we like the energy? Do we like the
Right. Yes.
which
Yes.
I think for somebody who has never been through the process, maybe feels strange. As somebody who went to school to be an audio engineer and has like recorded and mixed actual songs and records, like the vibe he is so
Oh,
foundational that
yeah.
I'm just
That's
like,
super
this
important.
is about vibes. Okay.
Yeah.
Is this the vibe? Is this the room we want to create? It's like when you're inviting people over to your house,
Yeah. Yeah.
there's the right candles you light
Right.
and the right lights that go on. Nobody turns on the big lights when there's guests coming over. Okay? Those are cleaning lights. They're it's a different situation. That's when you want everyone to leave. You turn on the big light. As bars have been doing for generations. But no, the music part is often somebody's like, I didn't think you were going to ask me so many questions about my feelings during the music selection process.
Well, I'm like music to me is one of the most important things, honestly. Like if I have an opportunity to go see live music, that is like literally my jam. I love music so much. So to me it really is a vibe thing. So all of that resonated with me a lot. And then also probably the other thing that sticks out is when I listened to my first episode before it was released and I was like, oh no, I sound horrible. Like I was like, why do you not like the way I sound? And you just like talked me down from the ledge and you were like, I'll do these couple of tweaks, see if you like it. And I know they were like just a couple of like small tweaks, but like when I listened back to it after you did that, I was like, oh, it felt significantly better to me. And then even a friend of my partners said, oh, she listened to the podcast and she was saying how she loved your voice. And I was like, oh, my voice? Like, are you sure it was my, and I know you've told me like so many times, like everybody doesn't like, most people don't like
I'm convinced there's some part of our brain that rejects the sound of our own voice.
it.
I don't know what it is, but this is maybe one of the handful of universal truths.
Yes,
Is nobody likes the sound of their own voice on a recording.
I agree.
Like I remember back in the day, aging myself here, but in ye olden days where we used like, answering machines and stuff, like hearing that and like I remember looking at my parents and being like, that's not what I sound like though, right?
Right.
Is that what you hear? Because that's not what I hear. And it's not good. And they're like, yeah, Stacey, that's what you sound like. And I'm like, that's upsetting. I may never talk again, which obviously did not hold. Okay, guys, we're barreling towards episode 700 here. So obviously that did not hold. But nonetheless, there it is. And every client I've ever worked with in any way, even when I was doing, primarily social media stuff way back when and doing short form content or, recording just little stuff. It's been like, I hate the way I sound.
Yes, I know.
Everybody does.
Something.
You just pretend it's somebody else, which I do think it's easier to pretend it's somebody else once you hear the fully edited episode with music and everything. There is this weird ability to detach a little bit. At least there is for me. But yeah, no, it's a universal truth. No, you never hate your voice more than the first 3 to 5 episodes of your podcast.
Yeah, I agree with you on that because now I can listen to it and I'm like, okay, I do not have the same reaction at all as I did when I've heard like the first, like you're saying, maybe 1, 2, or 3 episodes. But it did change a lot for me after you had done those edits, and you are also just very. I feel like you've been very flexible and very, kind about it without like trying to, oh, I'm just like, sugarcoating everything for you. No. And so it's like you're honest, but it's flexible, it's kind, and it's always helpful. So I've really appreciated all of that. Yeah.
I love that. So I think for you, those edits we made on those first ones were largely pacing things, right? There was a lot of like, making sure we had the space where we wanted the space and not have too much space. I always err on the side of abbreviating things a little more. And when I made those edits, to your point, it was a both and. It was some of this is there because like we need to
right.
We need to have a certain pace, but also yeah, there's moments we can let breathe a little more. And I made a handful of edits to that revamp.
Yeah.
And then that just informed any edits we made after that. And so we haven't run into that, but
right. Yeah.
Yeah. Some of it is also nailing that pacing, which is also part of like working with somebody new and also figuring out, this is one of the things about what's nice about having somebody, in the Launch Accelerator specifically and why I have this program that sits up front instead of just going into production for a year. Cause you don't know when you first start, if you want to do a year of the show, you got to figure out whether you want to eat this particular elephant, right? Like it's a big deal. Even with production help, it's still, you still got to show up in it. And it's always interesting to me in shifting to having this container, how much more space there is for people to think about what they want their show to sound like big picture instead of just this episode and this edit and this thing. It's like, well, no, what does the pacing need to feel like in these episodes overall? And that was really helpful feedback in that first one because it did dictate sort of how the show has gone on feeling in the subsequent 15, 16 episodes we've done since then. So I love that. As we wrap up, because I want to be mindful of your time and of course our listeners, I love asking this question as we wrap up when we talk to our clients. But if there was somebody reaching out to you right now and saying, hey, we're considering working with Uncommonly More to launch our podcast, what was your experience? Was it good? What would you tell them? And I'll plug my ears. Don't worry.
I would tell him, yes, it's absolutely great. I feel like I can basically, I show up, I record the episode, I send you the raw file, but you have made it very, like, you've given me so many, like, the step by step process. I know exactly what I need to do. If I have any questions, again, I can shoot you an email, which I know that I do. and
Everybody does.
and you're just so responsive, and you never come across like I'm wasting your time or I'm taking up too much time. And believe it or not, there's actually other people out there I've worked with that can absolutely come across that way. And then you're just very transparent about everything. And if I ask for feedback, I feel like I really get, quality feedback that's genuinely helpful. Again, it's not just like, oh, I'm just going to tell her something because maybe this is what she wants to hear. It's genuine feedback. And you have a great personality. You guys just take it from the raw file and do so much with it, I feel like, from the full editing, like I said, the intro, the outro, social media posts, getting it on all the podcast platforms. And I have a way to, look at my statistics, which is awesome. I actually love doing that and seeing how, my show is growing. So it's been a very seamless process where I've never felt like I'm concerned that either something's not going to happen or that I am doing something wrong, but I don't know how to figure it out. It's just like, it's all just, it's been very easy and really nice. It's really nice to be like that. So I've really
Awesome.
appreciated it. And I think it's been a great, working relationship for me, really.
Well, I'm happy to hear that because I really love working with you. I genuinely enjoy your show, especially as somebody who's been married just eons at this point. We will be celebrating 18 years as of recording this
Oh, wow.
in 4
Congratulations.
days.
Oh, that's
Sa- sa-
great. Oh, that's
the
amazing.
19th is either Saturday or Sunday, and that's our anniversary. And so it is always a little fun. My husband really, really likes when I edit your shows because inevitably at about 10:30 at night, we'll be laying in bed. I'll be like, so I was listening to Valerie's podcast today, and she was, what do you think about this? And he's like, we really got to talk about this right now. And I'm like, this is when it came up.
That's
This is what I'm thinking about right now.
Oh, I love it. Oh, I love that.
No, so it's I honestly, I think the best time to do couples therapy is when you're in like a good place.
Yes. Gosh,
That's the
yeah.
best time. I
Ooh,
don't know if that's
new
like
podcast episode.
a real thing. I'll make sure I write this down on our list. But like honestly, when things are good, that's the time to approach these conversations, not
Yes.
when you are already 10 years into being irritated by the fact that he won't pick up his towel.
Preach it. I'm telling you. I'm telling you. I had the best working relationships, I think, are the couples who come in and kind of are just using it as like, we're just making sure we're on, like, our relationship is always on track in a healthy way, that we're always staying emotionally and physically connected instead of coming when there's like a big crisis or they have one foot out the door. So I love that. And so, yes, I'm going to write that down as a future podcast episode now.
We'll add that to your calendar. I wanna be respectful of your time, so I want to thank you for coming and joining us and spending some time with us today and talking about your show. There will be links to find Valerie and her work as well as her podcast in the show notes. I want to say a big thank you again to Valerie for coming on and talking about her experience and talking about the show with me. I had such a great time doing this interview and like actually getting to record with the guests because it's not something I do very often. But above that, I've had such a great time working with Valerie on her show. And I want to let you know, if you would like to get your podcast launched, now is a great time to do it. You can set up a conversation with me and we can talk about what it looks like and talk about timing specific to your business over at uncommonlymore.com/launch. Go check it out. Go book a call and you and I can sit down and talk about your podcast launch. Thanks so much for listening to the show. Remember that content consumption does not make changes. So commit to doing something from today's episode. Maybe it's taking action on what we talked about. Maybe it's reaching out to me and learning more about podcast strategy intensives, or what podcast production looks like with our team. All of that is over at uncommonlymore.com. And if you haven't yet signed up for the podcast newsroom, I want to remind you that is a great next step. If you're not really sure what comes next, hang out over there. Get those exclusive private episodes. That's over at podcastnewsroom.com. And the last favor I will ask, because social proof is endlessly important for sure, is to leave a rating or review for the show. If you go to ratethispodcast.com/more, that's the easiest way to do it. But I would love to hear what you thought of the show, what you think of the show, and if the show has been helpful for you. I can't wait to chat with you. So this is just the start of the conversation. Reach out so we can keep it going. Talk soon.